here with us to talk about all things politics 2016 is Kevin Sheridan. He's the former communications director for the Romney-Ryan campaign back in 2012. Kevin, you heard what he had to say. You heard what Donald Trump's response was, which is to basically blame the media for distorting his words. What was your reaction when you first heard what he said and now his response?
My first reaction was, here he goes again. We've got another unnecessary controversy on a day when Hillary Clinton should have multiple problems in the eyes of the American public, both with the shooter, the Orlando shooter's father, sitting directly behind her, as well as a new batch of Clinton Foundation emails and State Department controversy that should be engulfing her campaign right now and having to respond to it on a minute-by-minute daily basis. Yet she continues to get out of jail free card from Donald Trump creating unnecessary controversies for himself.
So do you think this was a veiled attempt to incite violence? Do you think it was a misguided joke? I mean, what did you think you heard?
Well, look, I think a generous interpretation would be that he was just being sloppy with his wording. The problem is he's got a history of this, right? So we've got violence at his rallies, whether or not you blame him directly for that or whether or not he's just been a little too tolerant of it. That has hung over his campaign for now a year. And when he says something that's sloppy like this, to the point where the Secret Service actually has to respond and say they're aware of the comments and whether or not they're actually looking into it or not, we'll see. But he doesn't get the benefit of the doubt anymore. And that's just a very unfortunate thing for us to be like spiraling down into this kind of a discussion right now.
Right. Not only that, the comments come on the heels of 50 Republican national security experts saying that Trump would be the country's safety, would be bad for the country's safety and well-being, would be a risk. They wrote that he lacks the character and the values and experience to be president. Essentially, this is sort of feeding right into that narrative. How does the campaign sort of walk it back when their candidate is reinforcing what critics are saying?
Well, the biggest threshold question for Donald Trump has been and is now whether or not he is presidential and whether or not he can be entrusted with the keys to the White House and the nuke codes. And when the narrative against him, and when 61% of the American people currently don't believe that, and he continues to create his own controversies like this, you know, he's not doing himself any favors. What he would be best at is just focusing on his economic message, focusing on the national security message that he's got, focus on Hillary Clinton's problems, stop creating these little controversies, and I think, you know, then he could, you know, bring those numbers down. But once you've crossed that threshold in a lot of people's minds where you're not trusted, it's really tough to get it back, and I don't know that he can at this point.
Yeah, here's another thing that he said, and he's overshadowing himself and sort of he's distracting us from other things that he said, as well as distracting us from Hillary Clinton. But he's doubling down on the idea that the election could be rigged. Yesterday, he said that at a rally that the voter ID laws in North Carolina need to be checked because otherwise people will vote 15 times for Hillary Clinton. Now, there's been study after study about whether or not voter fraud is a real thing in this country, and study after study has concluded that it's not. Why does he keep bringing this stuff up?
Well, voter fraud is a serious issue, and it should be taken seriously by everyone, and the Justice Department and the Republican and Democratic National Committees should take this seriously, and states should take it seriously. However, when you try to delegitimize an election 3 months out because you think you might lose, that is a problem. That undermines the entire democracy, and that's not what any presidential candidate should ever do. He should, if he wants to focus on voter fraud, he should talk specifically about it. If he wants to, you know, if he just wants to, you know, get himself off the hook and not take any responsibility or blame for a big loss in November, then that's a very different thing, and he's playing with fire with that.
You know, you're right. If it was not for this gaffe, we may have been talking more about Hillary Clinton and some problems bubbling up for her, particularly new emails, again, released by the conservative group Judicial Watch. And these emails show sometimes overlapping interests between the Clinton Foundation and the State Department while Hillary Clinton was Secretary of State. It's raising questions about whether the charitable organization worked to reward its donors with access, perhaps influence at the State Department. You said, listen, this is what we should be talking about. This should be taken pretty seriously, you think?
Yeah, this would be an epic scandal if both the media and Donald Trump's campaign were to take it seriously. And Hillary Clinton hadn't gone out of her way to delete 35,000 emails that we'll never know about anymore. But look, I think everybody on its face looks at it and says, look, Bill Clinton's body guy, Doug Band, was put in charge of CGI. He has no experience whatsoever in setting up a philanthropy or running a big organization. Huma Abedin, is Hillary Clinton's top person at the State Department. They're emailing back and forth and setting up meetings for a Lebanese Nigerian billionaire for his interest before the State Department. That's a big story, and that should not be on A10 of the New York Times today. That should be on A1 of the New York Times today, and everybody should be talking about it. Everybody should be concerned about it.
Sort of the flip side of that is, hey, maybe this is business as usual in Washington when you're operating these high levels. There really isn't any evidence of any particular wrongdoing. It just may seem a little awkward.
Well, I think there could be wrongdoing there, and I think where there's smoke, there's fire, and it goes far beyond what the Clintons get away with. Is far beyond, and this is what the polling demonstrates, where most people don't trust her, that they get away with things that other people can't, and that plays into Donald Trump's narrative that everything is rigged, and this is just another example of it where we should be focused on this. He's not doing himself any favor. He should be focused on this as well, and he should force the media to focus on it because it is a big story.
Yeah, he certainly isn't doing himself any favors. That is for sure. Kevin Sheridan, thank you so much.
Thank you.